Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to our part three webinar of our series two online course on data journalism and visualization for rookies. This webinar series it's jointly organized by Data N and Google News Initiative. So in our third part of today's series, we are going to talk about reporting with data visualizations. In our first part, it was the introduction to data journalism. The second part is about how do we find stories from data. So today, after we have done our data analysis and after we have found interesting insights from the data set, or we are able to verify our hypothesis or questions using the data sets, now it is a time for us to visualize the data to deliver the information that we get from the data to our users or readers. Okay. Again, my name is Kwek Sir Kwang King. You can just call me King. I am the trainer for these sessions, together with Trina Leong, my co-trainer, who will be joining us during our Q&A sessions today. Just for you to know that Google News Initiative is our sponsor for the whole Series 1 and Series 2 of this online course. And the syllabus for the online course, the materials, are developed by Data N. And Data N is my own company that is based in Kuala Lumpur. We help newsrooms and journalists to produce data journalism with limited resources. All right, today we're going to cover, why do we need to use data visualization, or in short, data viz. So what can data viz do for our storytelling? And what makes a good data viz and a bad data viz, right? And then we are going to go over very practical tips on how do you pick charts and graphs. And we will have a short demo sessions on a data visualization tool called Flourish. Okay, I'm going to demo how to use Flourish to make a simple raised bar chart. And before we end, we are going to talk a little bit about a usability study. All right. Why we are using data visualization in our storytelling? That is because many newsrooms has found that visual elements, right, becoming more and more important in delivering the information effectively. So let us look at these two charts. Right, on the left is actually it is about the number of mentions of the word visual in the New York Times innovation reports. So New York Times until now have 3 innovation reports. The reports are very important for New York Times as well as the whole media industry, because the reports actually look back at some of the shortcomings and the weaknesses of New York Times. And the reports also show what are the future directions, that the publication New York Times, should go should head towards, right, in the future. So in those reports, right, there are more and more mention of the word visual in those reports, right? So it shows that the importance of visual elements, in journalism, in the journalism of New York Times, right? On the right is actually the number of stories in New York Times, that have deliberate visual elements. It could be a chart, could be a map, it could be some infographics, it could be some animation, right? But visual elements that are deliberately designed for that story. You can see that the percentage, starting from almost 0 in 2014, right, and going up all the way of 12.1%, in 2016. We don't have the latest numbers, but I believe it is much more higher than 12%. And don't worry about all these notes and all these links. I will share with you my whole PowerPoint presentation file at the end of the presentation today. You'll be able to download the whole PPT, and you'll be able to access all this different information as well as the hyperlinks that I put in the PPT. All right. Okay. So the first purpose that we use data viz is always that we want our storytelling to be engaging, right? And we know that visual is usually more engaging than just text, right? If we can design the visual correctly, in the right way, it can be very effective, in attracting attentions, right? For example, this chart, right? This animated chart that I'm showing you now. This is to shows you the number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Southeast Asia. And you see, compared to a traditional text story, if you're able to show the number of cases using an animated chart, right, it makes your storytelling more engaging. Okay. At the end of our today's sessions, we are going to use Flourish, right, to make this chart again. Okay. Database helps you to reveal insights. Last week we have seen how visualization can help us to explore our data. So the same purpose is being used here, right? We want to use data viz, right, to show our readers that there are certain insights from the data sets. So for example, this story is from Tampa Bay Times. It looks at the academic performance as well as the composition of Black students. In different schools, right, in a county in the US. And you see that if you plot the data on the scatter plot, right, this is a scatter plot, right, the vertical axis, or we call it y-axis, right, this one shows the passing percentage in reading and mathematics, right? So which means the higher, which means that the academic performance in that school is much better than other schools, right? On the horizontal axis, or axis X, right, this is the percentage of Black students in the school. So you will see that, by plotting the charts, right, of all different schools, each circle represents one school. If you plot this chart showing all the schools, you will find that there are 5 schools, which has a very high percentage of Black students, more than 80% of Black students in the school, but their academic performance is really, really bad, right? It's less than 10% in the passing of reading and mathematics, right? So these 5 schools are the interesting. I wouldn't say interesting because that doesn't sound really good, right? This is the focus of the whole investigation series by Tampa Bay Times. Okay, because these 5 schools, they are very Black in terms of their student composition, but they're also very poor in terms of academic performance. So what happened to these 5 schools, right? So using data viz, we are able to show insights from the data, right? Because if you don't look at the data, you don't plot it out, right? It's very hard for you to see that these 5 schools are very far away from the average, right? From other schools, right? So using data viz, can helps you to reveal or discover insights, and show it to your readers, all right? It helps you to explain concepts better. So this is a very famous story that is published by the Washington Post at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, to try to explain why do we need social distancing and how social distancing can help us to flatten the curve. Right, so you see that these are simulation, right? This is business. The first one on the top is business as usual. People just move around, like normal. Okay, and you see how the virus spread, right? The brown colors are people infected by the virus, and the pink color or the purple color are people recovered after getting infected. And you see that the curve is much higher. The brown curve is much higher, right? So that actually stress out your medical capability, right? But the simulation at the bottom, it shows social distancing, which means that only very few people move around. The other people, they just stay at home, right? So in this case, right, you'll see that the infection rate is much more lower, and the brown curve here, shown in the chart here, is much more lower compared to the first simulation. So this is what it means by flatten the curve, by keeping social distancing. Okay, so this actually translate to increase page view and time spent. So that story that I just showed you, right? This story by the Washington Post, it has become the most read story in the history of Washington Post, right? Which means that this particular story, has received the highest numbers of page view in the history of Washington Post, since it started to publish online, right? This is actually a tweet by a journalist, an editor from Washington Post, telling people that this is actually the most read ever story in the history of their website, right? So this kind of using data visualizations to explain, to illustrate the concepts or the stories, right? Usually can increase the page views, and time spent, and you are able to monetize, all these different um, traffics or different analytics, right? So that those are some of the purposes why data viz is getting more and more attention from news organizations, and more news organizations now have invested in graphic design or in data journalism, or data visualization experts to help them create more engaging and more effective data visualizations. Right, but before we jump into our own data visualization, now we all get excited. Oh, I also want to have data viz in my story, but not all data viz are created equally. Okay, we have good data viz, we have bad data viz. So I always like to start with bad data viz. What doesn't work? Okay, look at this one, right? So everyone, don't look at the numbers, right? Don't look at numbers here. Just look at the chart here and tell me, like, which bar is the longest one? Which bar is the longest one? So I think most of you will say that the darkest bar, the one on the far right, is the longest one, right? Okay. Now you look at the numbers represented by the bars. The longest bar actually represents 44%, right? The shortest bar, the one that is on the far left, right? It represents actually 51%, which is the highest among four bars, right? So this chart is very, very misleading, right? Because the longest bar actually doesn't represent the highest number, okay? So what happened is that the graphic designer, instead of making a traditional vertical straight bar chart, he or she decided to have a crooked bar chart, right? By bending those bars, right? And that becomes confusing for the readers, right? And just remember this, right? Once your readers, right, started to look at the numbers, right, to try to understand your database, right, it means your database has failed. Okay, you should redesign it, right? Because the whole purpose of a data viz is to translate the numbers into a form that is easier to understand, correct? Right, that is, and is more engaging, is more effective, right? But once your graphics is confusing and your readers start to look at the numbers to try to make sense of what you're trying to deliver, that means that your graphic has failed. So in that case, you should redesign your graphic, right? So this is a bad example. The second example, right? Look at this chart and you let me know that the first thing, what is this visual element? I think most of you will agree that this is a map, right? And this is the map of United States, right? So this is a map of United States. Then you look at the title, right? Changing Face of America, percent of total U.S. population by race and ethnicity, 1960 to 2060. Which means 2060 is a prediction, right? Then you look back at this map, right? The red color means the white, right? Blue colors are the black, green colors are the Hispanic, Asians are purple, and others are orange. All right. So look at the map. Why like that? The you see the border of the state, right? The white color border of the state. It strengthened the perception that this is actually a map. But then you will see that it doesn't make sense because why the white people they all live at the southern part of the map, right? And the black people they all live here, like in a line, right? And the Hispanic here. And where are the Asians? Asians are at the corner, the both top left and right corner. And together with the others, right? It doesn't make sense, right? Then you look at it maybe after a few seconds, those who are smarter will find that we realize that, oh, this is actually one, two, three bars. The bars show the compositions of each ethnic group in the year of 1960, 2010, and 2060, right? You see that this one means that 85% are white, 10% are black, right? And then I don't know how many percent are Hispanic. It is not even labeled here. I don't know Asian, right? So this is actually not a map. This is actually a bar chart. But somehow, not sure what the graphic designer was smoking at that time. He or she decided that, oh, instead of showing you a bar chart, let's make the bar charts that look like a map, right? And eventually you get this. And mind you, this is not from some, patchy or a scrappy website. This is actually from the NBC Nightly News, right? Which is one of the most watched evening news in the US, right? Okay, so this is again a bad example. And this, right? They all, both of them, made a mistake of over designing, right? They're trying to be fancy with their graphics, right? They don't want to stick to the traditional forms of graphic, which is a simple straight bar chart, right? They're trying to innovate their graphics, but when you over innovate, you confuse your readers and you fail in your goal. What is your goal? Your goal is to deliver the information as effective as possible. So remember that, right? Third one, this one, the graphic has the graphic form has no problem, right? This is the correct type of graphic because this is to show you the results of the general election, which party won how many seats, right? But you make some mistakes in this kind of story. This might be, the most important front page that you can put up every 5 years because the election only happen every 5 years in the UK. And people, when you make mistakes, stupid mistakes, people will make fun of it, for many, many years to come. So this is a tweet from Twitter, and people are trying to, make joke out of this graphic, right? So the first question is 34 bigger or smaller than 14? Why? Because this is 34. The yellow color is 34. The orange color is 14. Which one is bigger? Is 34 bigger or smaller? 34? Smaller. Definitely smaller. Okay. Then what about 0? 0 is purple color. 0, and there's a purple color slice here. 0. So 0 is a bit less than 34, but it's much more than 22 because 22 is here, right? So before you make your graphics, make sure that the slice size is correct. Uh, you know, all these very basic things is accurate, right? If not, this kind of mistake, if you made it, or you're going to be the laughing stock for very many years to come, right? And that brings me to another issue is that try to avoid pie chart when you are dealing with percentage. Okay, every time when we see percentage, when we add up the percentage, when you add it up and it becomes 100%, right? We tend to use pie chart because for us it's like you don't even have to think, right? Okay, if it's composition, the total is 100%, then I have to use pie chart. It doesn't have to be the case because pie charts is actually not the best visualizations for composition. So I'm going to show you three pie charts that you shouldn't make, right? The first one, this is a 3D pie charts because it have thickness. Not just 3D, it is also semi-transparent, all right? You can see. And it doesn't, it was not drawn according to the numbers, right? Because why you see this? This is 1.9%, but you see this slice. Is this 1.9%, right? And you can see that the 7.4% is smaller than 1.9%, right? And the 1.9% is almost as big as the 11.4%, right? So this is wrong. And don't use the other rule is that don't never use 3D chart, right? Because 3D, you make the chart more complicated to understand, and definitely not semi-transparent, please. And what about the thickness? The thickness of all these different sizes. Does the thickness represent a number? I don't know. Because Typical is to I will look at how big does this slice is, right? You can look at the size to see, what is the percentage, right? But you show me the thickness. So what should I make sense of it? The thickness, right? So this is actually a very you can do a very simple chart, but you try to make things complicated, right? The second one, let's look at this. This is the largest slice, right? This represents is 33.6. What about this? This represents 35.4. So again, why this is much larger than this, uh, but actually the number shows that this is a larger number, right? So what happened is that you can look at my hands here. Instead of doing a normal 2D pie chart, right, the designer decided to tilt the chart like this. So once you tilt the chart like this, the part that is nearer to you, right, will appear bigger than the part that is further from you, correct? And that is why you get this wrong pie chart. The third one, the third one, everything is wrong, right? Because it is showing you the GDP growth, right, from 2016 to 2020. And if you add it up, it's not 100%, right? Because this is not a composition, right? This is actually a number for each year, right? And I don't even know why they use a pie chart. This is a case where a simple line chart will do, right? Because you are trying to show numbers changes over time, right? So I don't know why they use a pie chart, right? Okay, so those are some of the back examples. A lot of time you can use bar chart to replace pie chart, okay? For example, if you add up all the percentage here, it is actually 100%, right? But instead of doing a pie chart like this, right? If you break it into a bar chart, isn't that easier to read, right? You will know that which one is the highest. The highest is 28%, and the second is 25, And it's easy for you to do comparison, right? Because for pie chart, right, sometimes you have to visually compare, whether this slice is bigger or this slice is bigger, right? And it's not that obvious, right? But for bar, it's very obvious. Even though, right, the difference between 4 and 3 is very small, but look at the bars here, the length here, you're able to know that this is actually longer than this one, correct? Or you can use one bar. If you have a much simpler data, you can use one bar and break it into different parts to show the distributions of the data. All right. And I want to show you this example, very good example of over designing or over innovate your graphics, right? What's wrong with this? So let's look at the story. This story is published by Berliner Morgen Post. It is a German publication. Of course, this is in German. I don't understand German, but I can translate them to English. And you will see that the data, the visualization is trying to show you the areas in different cities in Germany, and different areas that are not affordable, right? The areas that are not affordable shows that the rent of those areas, the rental price of those areas, is more than 33% of the average income, right? So when you spend more than 1/3 of your income to pay rent, that means that it is not affordable for you. Okay, so and there they make a 3D model for each city in Germany. So let's look at the first one. Is Munich. If you click on Munich, it will show you the 3D models here. You can turn the 3D model around. All right. But if you click it, right, nothing happened, right? You can't click, you can't drag, right? Basically, you just have to turn around, and you can look at 2012 compared to 2016. Of course, the price have surged a lot. But imagine if you live in this city, the city of Munich, right? By turning the 3D model here, are you able to figure out, which area are you in, and which all this different cylinder or bar, which cylinder or bar represents the area in the city? It is not easy, right? Because we don't understand our city in this way, right? The geographical locations, right? So even if I show you that, okay, this is much lower, but again, it's very hard for you to pinpoint which area is which area, right? And also this 3D model is very small, right? So at the end, what function or what purpose does this 3D model serve? No, nothing. Besides from, you know, giving you a fancy 3D model to turn around, there's nothing much, no information that you can get from here, or let you know that okay, things have pretty much become more expensive, 2012 compared to 2016. But besides from there, there's nothing much you can get out from here, right? Okay, and they actually made this kind of useless 3D model for each single city in Germany. Gosh. And some of the cities, right, like those cities, right, you don't even need a 3D model because there's not much difference, right? You can't even see the difference, and then it's so small that you are not sure, what do you make sense of this 3D chart, right? The more useful visualization is actually buried at the bottom of the story. So if I go and here and I click go to article, this is zoom in to Berlin. This is the map that is much more useful, right? The map will shows you which area, and this is how we recognize our city, right? The geographical location of our city. Okay, let's say if I stay here, right? This is quite expensive. It's not affordable, right? Maybe I can consider moving this area next to it, because this area, the average rent, it's much lower than here, right? And this is helpful, right? You can also change your income, right? The more you earn, of course, the more affordable, right? Now you can afford the whole city, right? You can change your income and trying to, see which area is affordable for you, right? So this is a much more useful visualization to your users, right? Not the 3D model, right? So remember this, right? Don't get too obsessed with the graphics, right? Graphics is to help you to deliver your information, because your job as a journalist is to deliver information, right? Not to create the most beautiful or the fanciest graphic in the world. So remember that, right? However, don't be upset. Sometimes when you first start with data journalism, you make some mistakes, because even the economists have made mistakes. Okay, so I would encourage you, after you download the slide, go and click on this link, or you just Google mistakes. We have drawn a few. This article, they actually have published several graphics that they think are bad. They already published them. So in these articles, they actually discuss why they are bad and what would they do if they had chance to redesign the graphics. All right. So this is a very good article. You can have a look. So then we come back to this question. So what good visualizations should have, right? Just now we look at all the bad examples. For me, a good visualization. This is of course not from me. This is actually from Alberto Cairo. Who is a data journalism guru, lecturer, a very famous lecturer in the US, right? He listed four criteria, right? The first is it has to be based on good data, right? So your data have to be correct, reliable, accurate, all right, before you convert them into a visualization. That is the basics. Second is, of course, you want to attract attention. We all understand this, right? The purpose of creating visualization is to attract attention, to make your storytelling more engaging. However, don't frustrate your readers, right? Once your readers don't get your graphic, or your graphic is confusing, or your graphic has no functions, there's no purpose, right? Then you are frustrating your readers. So don't do that. Okay. And the last one is also the hardest one, is to show the right amount of data. You don't have to show all the data in your graphics every time, right? So it is almost like our editorial decisions, when we go to do an interview with someone. We did a 1 hour interview. It is impossible for us to publish the interview in full, right? So we always have to pick and choose, right, to summarize the interview. We just give the important information to our readers from the interview, right? So it works the same in visualizations, right? You show the right amount of data. Don't try to show all the data that you have gathered, all right? So this is a good example, right? So look at this. This is a bar chart. It is showing the top 10 countries by total medal count in the Sochi Winter Olympics of 2014. If you observe here, right, it is only show you the top 10 countries. So they are not trying to show all the countries, right? There are hundreds of countries contesting in the Olympics, but they only show you the top 10 countries. Why? Because that is the more important one, right? And look at the numbers, the label numbers, right? It only labels United States with 28, right? And you look at the use of colors, it's actually very smart. Instead of using each color for a different country, they decided to use all the countries using the same color, but they use a darker color to highlight the bar of the United States. Why? Because the audience, right, the audience that they are trying to target, they are Americans, right? So Americans, they care most about, what is the status of their country in the Olympics. So in this case, the editorial decision is that, okay, I'm just going to show you that we, United States, we won 28 medals. We are behind Russia, and that's all we think you need to know, right? And if you care about other countries, go ahead, or you can read other countries. But here we just want to draw your attention to United States to tell you that we are 28 and we are number 2 and we are behind Russia, right? So again, you understand the charts immediately, and your attention immediately focus on United States, right? So this is a very smart use of labeling as well as colors, right? Imagine if you use different colors for different countries, right? The whole charts, you won't be able to catch your attention to a certain part in the charts, right? Because the colors there are too many colors, and sometimes your chart become cluttered and confusing because of the very colorful design, right? So this is simple but yet very effective and showing the right amount of data. But of course, that is your decision, how much data you want to show and how much data is actually relevant to your readers, right? This is a animation to show you how we can, as I mentioned earlier, how we can simplify a pie chart, a 3D pie chart into a bar chart. And you can compare before and after to see that the bar chart is actually more effective than the pie chart. Right? And look at the use of color. Okay. All bars are the same color except the one that they want to highlight. This is before and this is after. All right. So that is more effective, right? The second example is this, right? Again, a bar chart with all these special effects, right? The shadow with the 3D effect with the black outline. You see how it is simplified into a more straightforward and also cleaner version, right? So the current trend is that if your charts is clean, right, it looks more professional. Unless, of course, if you are publishing a lifestyle story or you are doing a lifestyle magazine, right, you might be able to use more colors in your design. But if you are talking about serious issues, right, social economy issues, politics, or the current pandemic, right, usually we will go for simpler and cleaner design, right, and that looks more serious and also more professional, right? If you look at the charts by, for example, Washington Post, New York Times, The Guardian in the UK, right, they all use very simple, straightforward designs, and they don't use a lot of colors. Okay, cool. Then the next part of our presentation is about how do we choose the chart for our data. Okay, you can look at this slide here. There are 60 different types of charts. And so, I mean, in this world, there are more than 60 different charts. These are just some of them, right? But 99% of the time, you only need these 8 types of charts, right? So I'm going to go through all these different types of charts before we do our demo, right? Why I don't encourage you to use many different types of charts, because a lot of time people don't really understand all these different types of charts, right? Sometimes we as journalists, we also don't understand. So if you don't understand a certain types of charts, then there's no point to use that chart, right? Don't try to, introduce new elements to your users unless you can explain it really, really good. And the element is really simple to understand, right? If not, stick to what they already know, okay? For example, bar chart. Bar chart is the easiest to understand, and it is good in comparison of categories, different categories, and it is good to show pattern, right? Which one is longer, which one is smaller, right? Comparison is the key here. Okay, bar chart is very good at showing comparison because our brain is able to recognize the length of the bar, right? Easily. Okay, this one is longer, this one is shorter, right? The difference between this one and this one is actually very small, right? We all can recognize that pretty well, right? The tips here are, that you always try to sort from longest to shortest for easier comparison, and you use horizontal bar for mobile, right? Because mobile allows you to scroll up and down. So if you have many bars, right? Let's say you have 15 bars, right? You can do the bars. You can do the chart vertically longer. To accommodate all different bars, so your readers can scroll up and down to look at the whole chart, right? So imagine if you use vertical bar charts, which mean like this, right? Vertical bar charts, right? If you have more than 10 bars, right, you have to squeeze in your small mobile screen, right? So your charts will become very small, and also they look, very cluttered together, right? So usually for mobile screen, if you know that your users, most of the users access your content from their mobile screen, then I recommend you to use vertical bar chart, right, in your design, right? And the last one is, of course, y-axis. This is the y-axis should always start with 0, right? If you start with, let's say I start with 10 here, and the small difference, right, will be amplified to look very big. And that is a type of data manipulation. You are trying to manipulate your data to mislead people, right? So don't do that, right? Always start with 0, okay? The second tab is also one of the most common tab. It is line graph, right? So line graph is very good at showing changes or trend over time, okay? And also do comparison. For example, this is a very good example showing you the income disparity in the America and Europe, okay? But some of the tips here, maximum 4 lines, avoid spaghetti chart, which means a lot of lines, right? So if there are too many lines, then you might use the technique of graying. You use gray colors for all the secondary lines. You only use bright colors or strong colors for the lines that you want to highlight, okay? So if you have many lines, you can do that. Don't do like 15 lines and each line has itself a color, right? And that will make your charts looks cluttered. All right. Or you can use multiple mini charts. For example, if you have 10 lines, right, you can show 10 charts side by side, 10 charts, right, to show 10 different lines. That is also make it clearer and easier to do comparison, right? Heat map, right? If you have many lines, right? For example, when we want to visualize the data for the United States, because the US have 50 states, right? So if you want to use the line charts to show the changes over time for the 50 states, you will have to draw 50 lines, right? So in that case, heat map might be a better alternative for the line charts, right? But remember, because heat map use color to represent the numbers, so it is actually very hard for you to do accurate comparison, because it's very hard for you to compare like, okay, this yellow and this red color box, right? How many times the red colors more reddish than the yellow color box? It's very hard to compare, right? Yeah, so it's not for accurate comparison. So be mindful that it's very hard for us to translate a color, for example, translate a color here into a number here, right? It's not easy, right? Our brain doesn't work in that way. Okay. Choropleth map, this is where we use this for election, right? A lot of time to show the supports of different parties in different geographical locations in the country. All right. So this is also one of the most common charts that we always use. Pie charts, just now I mentioned, you still can use pie chart, but pie chart only gives you a quick view of distribution or composition, right? It is not for accurate comparison. Why? Because look at this slice and this slice, which one is bigger, right? It's actually very hard to see it, like which one is bigger, right? Because this is 25, this is 26. But if you use a bar chart, right, between 25 and 26, you can see the difference, obviously, right? But here, not, right? And be careful about the color, right? Sometimes lighter color like this one, right, actually makes the slice bigger, right, than the slice that use a darker color, right? So the if you don't choose your colors carefully, you might mislead your readers, right? And again, the other thing is not more than 5 slices, please, right? If you have more than 5 slices, and you should then consider using a bar chart. Okay. Network diagram. This is also very common. Is to show you the relationship among people or organizations. All right. Scatter plot shows you the relationship between two variables. However, I don't encourage people to use scatter plot unless your audience they are familiar with this format. Because many people actually don't understand scatter plot. For example, this scatter plot that I make for a story for PRI, the org, is that it shows you that the y-axis here shows you that the better the gender equality in your country, your national women's soccer teams in that country will score better in the FIFA competition, right? Because more gender equal, then the women have more opportunities to participate in sports, and they also perform better, right? So that is the relationship I'm trying to show, right? But actually, a lot of people don't really understand scatter plot, and especially when you draw a line here, they'll be asking you what does that line mean, right? So um, unless you can explain it better, or unless your audience already understand what is a scatter plot, try to avoid it. Try to use other forms of graphics. Okay, so there are some tools that help you to choose chart, right? There is a guide that I make. It's a PDF file. So if you download this PPT, you're able to click on this link to download this PPT file, PDF file. And there's also an interactive website called Data to Viz, right? This is an interactive web page that helps you to choose what types of charts. Depends of what data you have, right? Okay. But again, remember, just use the normal, common types of charts that most people can understand. Okay. This, I want you, when you're after this presentation, please download the slide and click on this link. This is a quiz that will help you to understand the hierarchy of data viz element. I don't have to explain here. After you've spent 5 minutes to play this quiz, you will understand what I'm trying to explain here. All right. So please spend some time after the webinar to try this quiz. All right, time to make some charts. We have another 15 minutes. I'll use about 10 minutes to demo to you what can we make using Flourish, right? Flourish is actually a very simple tool to use for data visualizations, okay? You can, if you don't have any data, you want to use my data, you can access my data here, bit.ly/data GNI sample, okay? This is where you can get the data that I use for today demo, right? My colleague will also post this link in the YouTube chat box, all right? So now we are going to Flourish. This is the data that I'm going to show you. This is actually the COVID-19 cases data for countries in Southeast Asia, right? Starting from 13th of January, where Thailand has the first case in the whole region, right? Until the 28th of June, right? Which is yesterday, 2 days ago, right? And this is the accumulated numbers of COVID-19 cases in each country, right? So this is the data, right? Very simple, very straightforward, right? This is accumulated cases, right? Not new cases every day, but accumulated cases, right? This is Flourish. Flourish, the website is flourish.studio, okay? And once you can sign up for a free account, but if you are working for a newsroom or media organizations, Flourish is giving out free premium account for a news organization. What you need to do is that you scroll until the bottom and you click on the link newsrooms here, right? And you will go to this page. This is Flourish for newsroom, right? So they have partnered with Google News Lab to make the Flourish free for a newsroom, so you're able to have premium account. But even if you don't have premium account, the free account for me, right, is actually sufficient to make most of the visualizations, right? But the premium account, of course, they have some extra features, that is helpful, right? So you can apply for newsroom access here. Usually they will get back to you in a week or two, okay? But before that, maybe you should check with your graphic designer or your colleagues in your newsrooms to see whether they already have access to the premium account for Flourish. Okay, so once you register an account, this is what you will see, right? It's very easy. The interface, you can pick whether you want to create a new visualization or a new story. New story is a more advanced features of Flourish. It is able to combine different visualization to form a narrative, right? But we are not going to look at that today. We're going to look at the simple visualization. So if I click on new visualizations, there are many templates here. You can see these are all the visualizations that you can make using Flourish, right? Different types of pie charts, line charts, bar charts, different types of maps, scatter plot, and the more, for example, box plot, the more advanced one that even you make it, people might not understand. Bar chart race, this is what we are going to make, right? You can also do, for example, for those who are going to cover election, there's a parliament charts that is able to help you to visualize the number of seats won by different parties in your legislative hall. And survey is also useful. Okay, okay, I'm going to make a bar chart race today. Bar chart race visualization today by using the COVID-19 cases in Southeast Asian countries data, right? So for every template, once you choose it, right, you will see that there is already a chart here, okay? So there are two interfaces here. One is a preview, one is a chart. So this is a preview, right? Then this is the data. So preview is how your chart looks like. And you click on data, you'll see this is how your data looks like, right? They always, for every template, Flourish would have sample data here. This is just dummy data, right? Data that is put here. So that why they put it here is because that so that you need to arrange or organize your data according to this format, right? For example, the country name should be here, and the years or dates should be here. Okay, so that is why I arrange my data like this, right? So the country names is here and the day is here. All right. Okay. So what about the other the column B and C? This is the region, right? Region, if you want to have different region, for example, the yellow color for Asia, the green color for another continent, right? Image URL is where you get the flag image here, right? So in this case, I don't need image URL. I don't have that. I also don't have a region because my data is all from Southeast Asia, right? So I don't have a region. So I can ignore B and C. So the first thing I'm going to do here is now I'm going to select all the data here and delete them. So this data interface here works like a spreadsheet, right? You can just select, delete, or copy and paste. Then the next thing is I'm going to copy my data here, okay, and paste it here. All right. Once I paste it here, right, it is trying to load my data now, right? So one thing you will observe is that the number here, this alphabet here will keep going, right? Because it needs to load all my data here. And also because my internet connection is not here, it's not super fast. So I will need some time, right, for it to load all my data. But at the same time, let's go back to preview. And the first thing is we need to give a title, right? So COVID cases, Southeast Asia, exercise, right? Okay. And while the data is loading, right, this is where you can, this panel is where you can change all the designs of the charts here, right? The designs of the charts here, right? You can change the colors, you can change the labels, you can add up a header, which means a title. So accumulated COVID-19 cases in Southeast Asian countries until June 28th, 2020. So that's my title. Sorry, but I'll just put. I don't know what happened just now, but let me just put it again. Accumulated COVID in cases in SEA countries. Not change canary property map of undefined. Interesting. Sure, let's look at my data. I'm not sure why it doesn't allow me to change that, but let's look at the data first, right? You see that the data here, um, you see that the columns here are colored in different colors, right? This purple color, this has no color, right? Okay, this is where you need to change the colors, right? If you look at this, the B and C, right? Just now I showed you that B it's the categories and C is actually the image, right? So in this case, because I don't want the image, I also don't want the categories, right? So B and C are my data. So in this case, I will have to change the alphabets here, right? To should tell Flourish that where is my data. So column A is my label, which is correct. Then my values start from B until FM, right? The last column is FM. So I'm going to remove all this thing, right? And I'm going to put B until FM, okay? And the categories I'm going to remove and the image I'm going to remove, just leave it blank, right? So now you see that from FM until B is now all purple color, the same color as this one, right? And this is now we have done putting in all our data. Now we can preview how does our graphic looks like. It is not moving. Sometimes that is because the internet connection is not good. So what I would do is that I will actually go out to my list of visualizations. Every visualization that you have created, right, will be saved automatically. And I'll go back again. And usually that works. Okay. Yeah, now it works, right? So you see that now Thailand is up, Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam. Okay. So it will move from January to February, March, and now you see that which country is catching up very quickly. Philippines, Malaysia is currently number one, overtaken by Philippines, Singapore, and now Indonesia is catching up in May. And finally, what happened was that in June it finally overtake Singapore. Right. Okay. So you can play, and then you can after it will replay again, and again. Right. Of course, you can control the animations here. Let's say you want to control the animations. Okay, you don't want it to loop, you can off it, then it will not loop, right? It will run until the last day and it will stop there, right? So what we can do here is that we can actually change the bar size, right? If that is too big, you want to make it bigger. Sorry, you want to make it smaller, okay, so that we can see all different countries here. And also the bar colors. Let's say your stories is about Indonesia and Malaysia, right? So you can change the bar colors by bar, not by category, but by bar. Okay. Right. And then you can do to extends color override single. Okay, I choose single, which means that all are same color. And then I can manually put like Malaysia. I want it to be red color. Okay. And Indonesia, I want it to be orange color. So this depends on how you name your data here. So this is Malaysia, I put Malaysia, I can override. I see then the colors is different, right? So I can replay it. When you embed this chart in your story, your readers will be able to replay and stop as well. Or if you set it, on the auto loop option, then it will keep looping and looping and looping, right? So as simple as that, you pick the templates, put in the data here, right? According to how the data was organized, then you preview it, right? You can change the fonts here, you can change the numbers here, the labels here, everything you can change. Just now we try to put a header, it doesn't work. Let's try this again. A title, okay, COVID-19 cases in Southeast Asia countries. And now it works, right? Just now, I guess it was because of the connection problems. Well, because everything is online, you don't have to install anything, right? You can put subtitle until, let's say I put until June 28th, 2020. Okay. And then you can also have header. You can also have a footer. Footer is usually I'll put my source. Where did I get the data, right? And you can also put a hyperlink so that your readers can click and open up the source in a new browser tab, right? And after you are finished with all the colors, right? So you can try to explore yourself all these different options to change the design. The next thing is if you're happy with your data, your visualization, you want to publish it, you can click export and publish. Okay. So first click publish to share and embed, publish, right? And now you will get a embed code, right? So the embed code can be in script format, AMP format, or iframe format. Usually we all use iframe format is the most common form of embed code. Just like you get an embed code from the YouTube video and you embed the YouTube video in your website. So it works the same way, right? So you copy this iframe code and you can put into your CMS, right? Or you pass to your colleague who helps you to upload the websites, upload the stories to your website. They know how to use this embed code. As long as your stories can have YouTube video, they can embed YouTube video. Sometimes we embed tweet, right? If you can do that, then you're able to embed this graphic in your stories, right? So if you want to share this graphic with your editors before you publish it, there is a link here. You can always share the link with your colleagues or editors, and they can look at the graphics here, right? And then they tell you, what they want to change, how they want to edit it, right? Okay. So this is how it will look like in your stories. Okay, so this is Flourish. So it's very easy to use. Okay, there are many different types of visualization they can make with that. Okay, we only have 1 more minute left for this session. So I just want to stress one more thing. It's the usability study for data visualization. What does it mean is that before you publish any graphics, I strongly recommend that you show it to some of your colleagues, not your colleagues, maybe not journalists, right? Your colleagues, maybe from other departments, HR departments, preferably if you can show it to your target groups, right? If you're writing for parents, you want to find 5 parents to go through your visualizations, right? Because study have shown that, by only by 5 users, right? 5 users is about here, right? You will be able to find about 80% of the usability problems found. All right. So what happened is that usually I will make my graphics and then I will put it up on the mobile screen because most of my users access my content from mobile screen, and I will show it to my testing user, right? Test user. I show them, hey, can you look at this chart? And I shouldn't explain anything because when the users access your content, nobody is standing next to him or her to try to explain the graphics, right? So you just show the graphics to this person and give him or she 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stop it and ask this person, what is the information that you get from my graphic? So if that information that he or she get is different from what you want to deliver, then it means that you should go back and redesign your charts, right? So you just need to do 5, right? And of course, you should ask the person, why did you get this information? Why not other informations, right? So that you can fix your graphics from there, right? Okay, so just find 5%. Sometimes you cannot find 5%, you get 3, right? As long as you test it out, you will find a lot of problems that you don't realize because sometimes we fall in love with our own creation, right? So we think that that's the best graphic in the world, but we don't realize that there are actually a lot of problems with that graphic. So test it before you really publish it. If you spend the past 3 months, 6 months, trying to get the data, do the analysis, and publish the visualizations, but because of this usability study is able to help you to save your graphics if your graphic has problems, so you don't waste all your efforts in the past 6 months crunching the data. All right, so this is the final things that I want to share with you. So before we go to Q&A, there are also other data visualization tools that I recommend, right? I only have time to show you Flourish, but there are Evervis, Data Wrapper, and others. If you want to keep yourself updated with what is happening in the world of data visualizations, these are some of the newsletters that you should subscribe. And these are, if you want to learn more about data journalism and data visualization, these are some of the online courses that you can take. And they are all self-paced, which means that you can take your own time to go through them. All right. So as usual, we have a feedback form that we hope you can fill up and let us know how this webinar went and what are the things that you want us to share with you in the future. We don't have any plan for series 3 yet, but if we want to know what you want from us. All All right, so you can scan the QR code to access the feedback form, or you can type in the URL. My colleague will also send the URL in the YouTube chat box so that you can click from there. And feel free to reach out to me, King, or my co-trainer Trina if you have any questions. And you can download this deck from this link at the bottom. All right. So I'm going to stop my presentation and look at some of the questions.
Hi, King and everyone else. So far today, there's not that many questions, but perhaps, King, you could go into, GoGet has a question on basically he wanted a catalog about colors for design use, to use colors in the right way. I think you mentioned in your presentation just now how, it's not about being flashy and overly colorful, but to only use certain colors to prioritize the bar chart that you want to highlight. But if you have any other words of advice, King, you could also share. I've already told GoGet that there's no hard rule about what color is best and what color you shouldn't use.
Yeah, there's no hard rule. Sometimes for those media organizations that have more resources, they will actually hire the graphic designers to design a color palette for them. Color palette means that, let's say you have 5 choices of colors, right? So every time in every chart, you will use that 5 colors. Why is it important? It's because that so people recognize your branding. Every time people see these colors, they know that this chart is from your organizations. Okay, so that is important. For example, if you look at New York Times, you look at Economist, you look at Financial Times in the UK, right? They all have their color palette, right? But if you are in an organization where there is no color palette, you might want to go to this website called Color Brewer 2. Okay, Color Brewer 2 that helps you to pick color based on what visualizations that you want to show. Okay, let me try to share with you this Color Brewer tool right now on my laptop. Right, give me a minute. I'm trying to load up the page and then share my screen with you. Okay, I'm sharing my screen now, if you can see it. Okay. This is Color Brewer 2. Okay. So what happened is that if you want, let's say if you want 5 colors, okay, then depends on what types of color palette you want. There's a sequential, there's a diverging, there's a qualitative. Sequentials means that, from 0 to 100, let's say from 0 to maximum, right? From the weakest color to the strongest color, right? Diverging means that there are 2 end of color, right? Maybe from red to blue, right? Slowly changing to blue. Qualitative means that 5 very distinct colors that are very different from each other, right? That is qualitative. So if you just want, say, 4 colors, it will give you 4 colors here, and you can choose from different color palettes here to have 4 different qualitative colors, right? But if it's sequential, then you can use like red color, 4 different tones of red, 4 different tones of purples, and this is the color code that is usually used in all the visualization tools. This is how you tell the tool that, okay, this is the color that I want to use, and the color is this 6 digits, so 6 alpha digits code, okay, with the hashtag, right? So this is called Color Brewer tool. I find it very useful for non-designers, right? If you have zero knowledge about design, you don't know how to pick colors, and this is what you want to use, right? If you have more resources in the newsrooms, you might want to develop a color palette so that you can always stick to the same colors for all your visualizations to help you to build, the consistency and the branding of your organizations. All right.
So another question is on by Chippy on whether there are other sites that are similar to Flourish. I think in the deck we've already shared several examples. One of it which is Infogram. But the reason why we went and dived deep into showing you Flourish is because we have seen among compared to the other sites, Flourish has done a pretty good job in providing you a clean but also very pleasant to the eyes graphic that many newsrooms have used, and it's also free.
Yes, so there are other tools. Actually, a very good alternative to Flourish is Data Wrapper. Data Wrapper is a very good tool. And currently, the free account of Data Wrapper is also powerful enough to make a lot of different visualizations. When it comes to, for example, mapping, right? Next week we are going to cover mapping. Data Wrapper actually has a better mapping tool compared to Flourish, for example. So yeah, so there are three of them, right? That I share is first is Flourish, the other one is Data Wrapper, and the other one is called EverVis. Before that, it was called High Charts, and then it rebranded into EverVis. That one also I like it. Infogram is one that many newsrooms are using. Infogram is also good. So again, it depends on what are your preference, which one works more. Give you a better user experience. It's your personal preference. But I find them very similar to each other. So if you want to make some unusual charts, right, which again is not recommended, but if in a case you want to make some unusual charts and it's not available on Flourish, then you can check out Data Wrapper or you check out Infogram to see if that the chart that we want is available on those different tools or not. That is usually what I would do. All these tools don't require programming. So the whole series here is that without programming skills, you still be able to make nice visualization that can help you to tell your stories. All right.
And the next question we have is from Ifedayo. What is the visualization you use as
Yeah,
example on
it's
Flourish
called
Cloud?
bar chart race. Bar chart race. If you go and open up the templates, you will see there's a bar chart race there. Yeah. It is different from the simple bar chart. On the top is the simple bar chart, the one that they don't race against each other. But this one is called bar chart race. All right. Okay, it's 10. It's 4:10. Any more questions coming in? If not, and it is time for us to say bye bye. And we hope to see you again next week. Next week, same time, we are going to talk about mapping, which is also the last part of our series 2 webinars. All right. For tomorrow and the day after, we have the same webinar today, like today, in Bahasa Melayu as well as Chinese. Bahasa Melayu is tomorrow, and the day after will be in Chinese, right? The same content. The next week, we are going to talk about mapping for storytelling. All right. So see you next week. Bye bye.
Right. Bye.